On July 16, 1945, the United States detonated the world's first atomic bomb in the desert of New Mexico. The heat of the Trinity test was so intense, over 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, that it instantly melted the desert sand into a radioactive green glass, now known as trinitite. Mainstream history insists this was the very first time humanity harnessed the power of the atom. But history is wrong. Deep in the great sand sea of the Egyptian desert, explorers discovered hundreds of miles of the exact same phenomenon. Massive chunks of pure, pale yellow glass scattered across the dunes. It is called Libyan desert glass. It was even used to carve the scarab beetle in the center of King Tutankhamun's burial necklace. To create this glass, the sand had to be exposed to temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Geologists claim it was a meteor airburst, but there is no impact crater. So what caused the desert to melt? The mystery of melted Earth isn't confined to the desert. It is built into the ancient architecture of Europe. Across Scotland, Ireland, and parts of France, there are over 70 ancient stone fortresses that defy the laws of physics. They are known as the vitrified forts. When archaeologists examined the massive stone walls of sites like Craig Padraig and Tapa North, they found that the rocks hadn't just been burned. They had been melted together into a solid mass of black glass. Mainstream historians claim this was the result of primitive warfare, enemies stacking wood against the walls and setting them on fire. But material scientists have proven this is impossible. An open wood fire cannot reach the temperatures required to melt solid granite and basalt. To vitrify rock, you need sustained, extreme heat of over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. You cannot do that with sticks and torches. So what kind of weapon was unleashed in the ancient world? To find the answer, we must travel to the Indus Valley, in modern-day Pakistan. Here lie the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, one of the most advanced ancient cities ever discovered. Built over 4,500 years ago, it featured complex street grids, multi-story brick houses, and sophisticated indoor plumbing. But the city didn't slowly decline. It was wiped out in an instant. When archaeologists excavated the site in the 1920s, they found a distinct epicenter in the middle of the city. At this ground zero, the clay bricks were melted, bubbled, and fused together on one side, indicating a blast of unimaginable directional heat. Even more terrifying, they found 44 human skeletons scattered in the streets. They were not buried, they were holding hands, there were no slash marks on the bones, and no weapons were found. They were simply walking through their city when something instantly ended their lives. What could kill a city in a fraction of a second? Melt clay bricks into glass, and leave no signs of conventional warfare. In the late 20th century, Soviet and Indian researchers reportedly tested the remains found at Mohenjo-Daro. What they found shatters the mainstream historical timeline. The skeletons and the stones around the epicenter were highly radioactive. According to some reports, the radiation levels were up to 50 times higher than normal background radiation, comparable only to the victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Mainstream academics refuse to acknowledge these radiation reports, dismissing them as fringe conspiracy. But if we listen to the people who actually lived in this region thousands of years ago, they tell us exactly what happened. The ancient Hindu epics, specifically the Mahabharata, are considered by modern scholars to be works of pure mythology. But read the descriptions of the ancient wars and ask yourself if this sounds like a myth or a survivor's account of a nuclear blast. The text describes a weapon called the Brahmastra. It was a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe. The text reads, "An incandescent column of smoke and flame, as bright as 10,000 suns, rose with all its splendor. It was an unknown weapon, an iron thunderbolt, a gigantic messenger of death, which reduced to ashes the entire race of the Rishnis." The description gets even more specific. The text states that the corpses were burned beyond recognition. The survivors lost their hair and fingernails. The pottery broke without cause, and the birds turned white. Hair loss and nail loss are the exact specific biological symptoms of acute radiation poisoning. How could ancient scribes invent the precise medical symptoms of a nuclear fallout, thousands of years before the atom was split? The melted forts of Scotland, the glass of the Egyptian desert, the radioactive ruins of the Indus Valley. The evidence points to a terrifying conclusion. Humanity has reached the pinnacle of technological power before, and we used it to destroy ourselves. Are we a species with amnesia, doomed to repeat the cycle? We know they had the power to destroy, but next week we will prove they also had the power to create. We investigate a 2,000-year-old artifact found in Iraq that proves the ancients possessed electricity, the Baghdad Battery. Subscribe to remember our past.